Now I'd like to welcome to the program Celeste Schenck. She's the president of the American University of Paris. She'll be with us over the next 20 minutes or so to delve into those results and, of course, the importance of the Super Tuesday. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. Delighted.
Would it be accurate to say, and this is what a lot of observers have been saying, that this turnout was driven more by this rather nationwide fear of Donald Trump remaining in office for the election and less so necessarily about the candidates themselves, which our reporter, the Ketavan Gorgestani, was speaking about?
I think that's clearly true. It seems to be finally that the Democrats, worried about the fact that there was so much choice, finally got clear on how do we winnow this field, because the real goal is beating Trump for Democrats. So I think you see that in some of the exit polls where people say that the primary thing that drove them to the polls was that.
And the decision was last minute, we heard from Ketavan there, and you were shaking your head in agreement.
Well, because my own vote was last minute. I think lots of people waited to see what would happen, and lots of people, especially people who vote Democrat, waited until the moment when South Carolina voted to see whether there would be a little bit of a change or a big change in momentum. And even waited for the results of Tuesday. In other words, I will go home tonight and vote because I will send my ballot into Florida tonight because I have a week before me to get my ballot in now that the results of Super Tuesday are in. But if you look at yesterday and you look at the exit polls, lots of people in California, lots of people in virtually every state had waited until the last moment. And 50% of those went with Biden, I think. It may not be in every single state, but I think that's the general percentage. So people were waiting to see.
Schenck, do stay with us. We're just going to cross back to the US, where amidst this kerfuffle, one man is not giving the game away. When asked who he would like to face off in November, Donald Trump said, quote, "Anybody. I'll take anybody I have to." Here's France 24's Emerald Maxwell with that story.
Who would I like to win? Anybody. I'll take anybody I have to. That's the way it's going to work.
The US president may ooze confidence, but with two very different frontrunners vying for the Democratic nomination, Donald Trump knows that a lot will depend on who comes out on top. On one hand, there's Bernie Sanders. The leftist presents himself as a democratic socialist, or as Trump would have it, a communist. Trump knows Sanders scores well among some of his working class base. So to put people off defecting, the president has sought to undermine the Vermont senator's more radical ideas on medical insurance and the wealth tax by labeling him Crazy Bernie. Centrist Joe Biden presents a different sort of threat from Sanders. He's very popular among African Americans, a key electorate, and former Obama supporters. But his advanced age and numerous gaffes have earned his nickname from Trump.
For Sleepy Joe, he doesn't even know where he is, what he's doing, or what office he's running for. Actually, I honestly don't think he knows what office he's running for.
He'd be wrong, though, to underestimate the former vice president. Written off just 2 weeks ago after a slow start in the primaries, Joe Biden has just made a dramatic comeback in the race for the Democratic nomination.
Celeste Schenck, we heard that report there together. Are we to take Trump at his word? He doesn't care who he faces off in November?
I don't think so. I mean, I think that he's been clearly sort of pushing the candidacy of Bernie Sanders, I think because it would prolong this sort of polarized debate. And there have been echoes or rumors that the Russians have been pushing the candidacy of Bernie Sanders as well. He's always been afraid of the candidacy of Joe Biden, who's a unifier, who's in the center, who's very much associated with Obama, because that's where the real enemy lies for him, I think, in moderation, in unification of the party, and that's perhaps why he put himself in impeachment territory.
And who do you think, this is looking ahead, would do better going up against Trump in that debate, Sanders or Biden?
Well, personally, I'm disappointed that there aren't any women in the final debate, because I do think that a woman could have gone up against Trump and probably won. But that's not what an electorate that's, I think, nervous, has decided. Difficult to say at this point, but I think the way that the Democrats have rallied around the candidacy of Joe Biden, some of them liking him very much, others less, but the way they've been able to rally behind him as a centrist suggests that there will be a big, strong wave there in November.
Others, of course, pulling out to support Biden.
Pardon me?
Others, of course, other candidates pulling out to support him.
Absolutely. That was, I think, one of the turning points of this weekend was what has been described as the patriotic gesture of Klobuchar, but first Pete Buttigieg, who have no doubt been promised that they'll have their moment also in future, to stand by and to endorse his candidacy.
And so it is a two-man race at the moment. Let's talk about the main political positions of both Biden and Sanders and just how they differ. And in some places, of course, they are in agreement.
Well, most of the Democrats are in agreement over certain dominant themes which recur always in American elections, like abortion, like guns and things like that. Although Sanders, as you know, has not been as strong on guns. He'd had to do that to sort of maintain his constituency in Vermont. But I think probably the thing that distinguishes those two the most is that Biden stands behind a slower, more progressive restoration of Obamacare. He certainly stands on the side of health care, but not the Medicare for all sort of position of the left, the far left. So I think that's where the Democrats are going to have to debate, because that also seems to be the number one issue of the electors.
Many issues to be debated.